I'm going to put my meditation timer up here too because I like to know where I am along the journey. And everything you've ever heard about Southerners speaking slow is about to be dispelled. Because I have like an hour's worth of stuff I want to tell you. I could just... I'll start by saying that I was Marine deployed to Iraq in 2003. I kept a personal journal while I was there. It was a way that I was able to survive emotionally, and as all the constructs of what I believed about my country were being challenged. And you know, I joined the Marine Corps at 34 for a long list of very good reasons. And now, as a 46-year-old man, I can say how much of my internalized homophobia had something to do with that too. And it took me it was a long time for me to get there. I was medevac for a very non-heroic, non-combat injury, and by the time I got back, I had become so concerned about, you know, even while I was still deployed, my fellow Marines, because of this trust that I had built with them, because I was always out of the closet to my buddies. I was going to play the don't ask, don't tell thing going in, but that was someone who didn't have the experience of what it's like to live in the military. These people are, you know, they're like family. And when he tells me, I say he, not discounting the sacrifices of females, but I was stationed only with men in a combat battalion, and they would come to me with their grief and their rage. The battalion chaplain got pissed off because I had shared this thing with them that was ammunition that they could get me thrown out. When I came back from Iraq, my heart was broken, and you know, becoming a Marine was the best thing that had ever happened to me. And when the man who sent me to war got on TV and once again reiterated that marriage is a union between a man and a woman, all of it came tumbling down, you know. And I said, you know, because I didn't get like the anti-war voice that seemed to be like anti-American, you know. I went on, this is what I did. I went on CNN in an interview on the day that they hung the Blackwater contractors from the bridge, supposedly to do an interview about how that was going to affect troop morale. Instead, I told them I was a big fag and that and I was leaving the military. And I knew that if I did it to 5 million people, they couldn't, because sometimes they shh under the carpet and make you do your thing and say, yeah, we'll kick you out when we get home. But so I came out to 5 million people. At the same time, I wrote my CO this 7-page letter explaining exactly why I felt compelled to do it. And I was known as the most patriotic Marine in my company, you know. So and I took those journals. I needed to speak about it. I knew I was going to die if I didn't. And so I took those journals and I made this play called The Eyes of Babylon. And you can't call during the, and so I could tell you a funny story about who that is. So I wrote this play, The Eyes of Babylon, which I did this little bus and truck through Kentucky to these, like I got protested by right-wing Christians, like they came out and like, you know, wanted me to either accept Jesus and become straight or leave Kentucky. I took it to Dublin. I brought it to Boston. We did 9 cities here and in Dublin, Ireland. And we just closed off Broadway like a couple of months ago. And for a little country queen from the South, that was a big deal, you know, for me to be in New York with this story. And so along the way, I started speaking, you know, like at the events and stuff. And I got spat on one day, and it was like time travel. I all of a sudden was about 30 feet away, and there were these Vietnam veterans around me, like 5 of them. And I could live to be 200, and I'll never forget this. They had the wisdom not to say anything because they knew that there was nothing that they could say in that moment. They knew. And so I wanted to, you know, by telling my story, I started to learn from those veterans a lot, because a lot of them didn't make it. And I looked at Vietnam veterans because I want to make it. And I looked at the ones and I said, what are they doing? They're reaching out to other veterans in a peer-to-peer situation. I have nothing against PhDs or clinical social workers or anything. I love my psychologist. But there's something pristine that happens when a room of just alcoholics or just veterans or just women get together and are able to talk about their common experience when nobody has any letters after their name. And if they do, they're just there because they're a vet or a drunk or a woman. And so I needed to bring this to... You know, when I did that thing and said that I'm willing to give my life for my fellow troops, I meant it, you know, and I had been blessed. Showtime made a movie about my play, and so through the movie and the play, I've been able to open up this conversation with thousands. And I really don't care if people think that, you know, George Bush, oh gosh, that's it. I don't care when people come to the retreats. Please go to our website because there's like cohesive information in there. I want them to be able to have what I have, and when they walk in the door, I don't care if they think that George Bush was the second coming of Christ. They are as welcome there. And we started out being say, hey, don't bring your politics, and now I say, you know, bring your politics, bring anything, just throw it on the canvas, because my ability to tell my story through my art has saved me. And one more thing I'll say quickly, and then I'll go sit down and start thinking about what I should have said, is that Dr. Bobrow, I think, in a comment said, like, I've made this mistake. You know, I've run around since I got back from Iraq. And I throw this out there for any of you do-gooders, that I mistook the making myself an empty vessel so that the art could come through me with emptying my bowl. And you cannot feed from an empty bowl. You know, therefore what I'm saying is, like, my husband's in med school, and I am determined to go back to find a way to fund this organization in a way that we can do this good work instead of doing what I have been doing over the last 7 years, which is starving myself to death. You know, it's ridiculous. I mean, thank you, Paula, for sending down the cab fare for me to get upstairs. And thanks for letting me go over in time. Thanks.